Hello, my name is Matt Galello. I am a research analyst for the state's Division of Local Government Services. In this role, I assist in the design, implementation, and support of the Financial Automation Submission and Tracking System, otherwise known as FAST. And today we'll be reviewing the Fire District budget implementation within the FAST system. First off, what is FAST? FAST was developed to streamline local government financial document submissions. Essentially, it's replacing the legacy processes of either mailing or emailing financial documents to the division. It is a one-stop shop for submitting financial documents to the state. It has already been implemented for municipalities and counties who submit their debt statements, financial statements, budgets, and audits through the system. Fire districts are transitioning to FAST for the 2021 fire district budget year. FAST is developed on a Microsoft platform and accessible on any supported internet browser. A supported internet browser is one that allows for proper use of any system, such as the FAST platform. So these browsers include Chrome, Safari, Edge, and Firefox. As of 2021, Internet Explorer will no longer be a supported web browser. It is being replaced by Edge, which is a new supported browser. However, for doing data entry in FAST, we recommend the use of Google Chrome, specifically the most up-to-date version of Chrome. Accessing FAST. For fire districts, designated officials may be granted access to FAST. So a designated official is the secretary for the Board of Fire Commissioners, the treasurer for the Board of Fire Commissioners, or an administrative officer. This includes somebody in the role of chief financial officer, business manager, etc. This is the individual that is either responsible for the day-to-day operations of the fire district, the preparation and execution of the budget, or both. A paid preparer may be provided the document itself for completion, the fire district budget document itself, but are not considered designated officials and will not have access to the system. Access to the system is for downloading a template, uploading a completed document, and submitting to the division, all functions that must take place within the fire district itself and not by a paid preparer. The accounts are created by the Division of Local Government Services, and login credentials are emailed to the individuals themselves. We ask that fire districts who have somebody who is a designated official that does not currently have access, email firedistricts@dca.nj.gov. Again, that's firedistricts@dca.nj.gov, and include their name, title, email address, and a business phone number. We'll create an account based on those that contact information, and we'll email those individuals their login credentials. The FAST portal itself is accessed at njDCA.dynamics365portals.us/signin. Once you have an account, that will take you right to the sign-in page where you log in for your fire district FAST account. Upon signing in, users with the fire district web role will be directed right to the fire district budget page. Accessing the fire district budget workbook. The fire district budget workbook is a single Excel document, whereas in previous years there was a Word document and an Excel document that were ultimately merged together. This year it is a single Excel workbook that is provided by the division. This workbook must be used exclusively by all fire districts. There are formulas that were put into place, links that were put into place, and standardization of the document from one page to the next to ensure accuracy and clarity when we map into our FAST database. So all the information from these Excel documents will be mapped into our database, which helps with both the review process and the analysis of data so that the division can provide quality services to the fire districts. And just before we jump into the portal and the workbook itself, just a couple notes on completing the fire district budget workbook. First, the landing page is the instructions page. Read those instructions carefully and then navigate to the key inputs page. You'll notice that on the instructions page, there are links to both a user guide and the list of Muni codes. Muni codes for fire districts are a 6-digit identifier that are unique to each fire district, and it helps the division identify districts while performing budget review and/or analysis. The same template is used for introduction and adoption. Once you have completed your introduced budget, you'll simply make a copy of it and rename that copy as the adopted version of the budget. Any amendments between introduction and adoption can be incorporated into that adopted copy before it's uploaded to the system and submitted through FAST for adoption. Copying and pasting throughout the document is allowed, but users must choose the paste values option to maintain the accuracy of information and the structural integrity of the document. You can see to the right of the screen there is an icon that specifically points out the paste values option. It is the clipboard with the numbers in the bottom right corner of it. And again, this is used to make sure that there are no structural changes to the document as you are copying and pasting information from other documents. Cells that allow data entry are either highlighted in yellow or gray throughout the document. Anything else that's a white cell is locked down. Attachments of responses are not permitted as space has been provided for in-document responses. That means any questions throughout the budget workbook that ask for a response, space has been provided for that response. However, anything that is considered supplemental information, a contract, documentation for proof of a sale of asset, a shared service agreement, etc., may be attached. It is only the information that should be entered in the document that is required to be entered to the document. Anything outside of the budget, considered a separate document from the budget, is what can be attached in the system, and we'll review that. So when I first log into the FAST portal, you're going to land on this fire budget workbook screen. This is again when you say you first sign in, this is if you have the fire district role where you're going to land. You'll see the fire districts to which you are associated. There is a separate introduced and adopted record for each year. We're using this Galleloville as a test fire district for our 2021 budget. And you also see at the top here where we have download fire budget workbook. This is where you will download the standardized template for each budget year. And again, that there is just one document this year as opposed to the multiple documents that were used in prior years. So you'll click on this, and in the bottom corner of the screen, you'll see the file is downloaded. And when you click on that, your Excel document will appear. The first page that you land on, again, is the instructions page, which reviews much of what I just went over, that the workbook is used for completing the introduced and the adopted budgets. It's designed to automatically calculate amounts linked from different data entry points. Tabs containing formulas are locked, while data entry is either yellow or gray. Begin by navigating to the Key Inputs tab, which we'll review next. Anywhere that a signature is requested, we're asking for the email address of that applicable official to be entered. Again, when copying information from another document, users must select paste value when pasting that information into this workbook. The division has also standardized the naming convention of the document for introduction and adoption. We're asking that the Muni codes be used to name the document. So it's MuniCode _ intro budget _ 2021 in this case. Whereas for adoption, it would be the MuniCode _ adopt budget _ 2021. And you can see at the top of the screen here we have the Muni code 0304-01 underscore intro budget underscore 2021. The list of Muni codes is right here in the workbook. And you can see here that the Muni code, the 6-digit identifier, is listed for each of the fire districts throughout the state. And also on this page is a link to our user guide for the fire budget, which goes over much of what we are also reviewing today. The next page you're going to want to navigate to is the Key Inputs tab. This is where you will enter the year. 2021 is automatically selected since that is the first year here for the fire districts. You'll select your fire district's name from the drop-down menu. So in this case, we have selected Bordentown Township Fire District number 1. The county, Burlington, automatically populates. You'll enter the web address, as well as whether the election is held in February or November. We ask that the chairperson, treasurer, secretary, and commissioners for each fire district be listed under the Board of Fire Commissioners section. And the individuals who will be completing each of the certifications should have their names listed here. Prepare and prepare other assets, approval, and internet certification are required for the approval and introduction of the document, whereas upon adoption, users will also need to complete the adoption certification section. All the information that's entered here will populate to those certification pages, and the only thing that will need to be entered on those pages is an email in lieu of a signature and votes on the resolution pages. You'll notice that there are various pages throughout the document that are cover pages or section pages that do not allow for data entry by users. Next, we'll go to the certification pages in the beginning. So the preparer certification, again, the contact information automatically populates, and the user enters their email address in the yellow box in lieu of a signature. The prepare other assets certification is exactly the same. The internet certification, you will see that the email address will populate at the beginning of the page. Checkboxes are provided for each of the questions or criteria for the internet certification. The contact information of the individual populates from key inputs, and the signature email is provided. Also, upon approval and introduction are the approval certification and approval resolution. On this page, again, the contact information populates and the email address is entered in lieu of the, in this case, treasurer's signature. You'll notice that the date of introduction will also populate to this page. That date of introduction is entered on the approval resolution, which we'll go over next. So on the approval resolution page, there are a couple things that I would like to call attention to. The first is that in I-9, cell I-9, you're going to enter the public meeting date where the budget was introduced. So in this case, we have December 14th, 2020, for example. That date is going to come into the resolution in all applicable places, and then also to our certification page here. Any amounts entered throughout the document, your total revenues, your amounts to be raised by taxation, and your total appropriations are automatically going to populate to the resolution. And finally, as you get towards the bottom of the screen, you are going to enter here in cell I-33 the date that the introduced budget will now be considered for adoption, and that date will populate in the resolution. Finally, the secretary's email address will be entered on the yellow line for their signature, as well as the date of that signature. The vote will be recorded for each of the commissioners using the X's in the box as you see here. The adoption certification and adoption resolution, again, only required upon adoption is very, very similar. The contact information for the treasurer, again in this case, populates, and they entered their email address as their signature. The date here on the page as to when the budget is adopted is again entered on the resolution page. The adopted resolution is a little more intricate than the introduction or approval resolution. In addition to entering the open public meeting date, which again is the date of adoption that populates into the resolution, the fire district must also answer whether the amount to be raised by taxation is compliant with the property tax levy cap law, whether there's a referendum to exceed the amount to be raised, or whether there's a referendum to use restricted fund balance. And the way that would work is that the X here will be preset that the fire district is compliant with the property tax levy cap law, and the applicable text will populate in the resolution. If there is a referendum, let's say, to exceed the amount to be raised, the X will be removed from that section, entered into the box for the referendum to exceed the amount to be raised. The text in the resolution will change, and a referendum amount will be entered. In this case, if we had $50,000, we have the updated text and the $50,000 amount. If we were to have a referendum to use restricted fund balance, again, the text will change, and we have our amount of $30,000. Again, the revenues, appropriations, and amount to be raised by taxation will populate. The signature, the email signature, and date are entered, as are the recording of votes. All of those all of that at the bottom is similar to the approval resolution. Next, we're going to move on to the narrative and information sections. This contains the message and analysis, contact information, questionnaire, vehicle list, schedule of commissioners, health benefits, and accumulated absences sections. So for message and analysis, the division has expanded the number of pages for message and analysis to allow for answers to be entered right on the screen, right under the listing of the question. You'll notice for question 1, the fire district's annual election month populates from the key inputs page. However, if the resolution was or was not submitted to the division, we are asking you to do so, and that is a question here in this drop-down menu. The questions are unchanged from the prior years, and the amounts are provided in the text boxes on the page. If a question has an answer that is not applicable for that fire district, the fire district should enter N/A for not applicable in those text boxes. And on the final page, of course, we have the entry of the assessed valuation, the proposed tax rate, and the 2 questions regarding LoSAP, which instead of a drop-down menu, ask for an X to be put in the yes or the no cell. Next, we have contact information. Some of this information will populate based on what was completed at the beginning of the document on the key inputs page, while other information is data entry. This year, we are asking for the contact information for the preparer, chairperson, secretary, treasurer, and the auditor for the fire district. All of this information must be completed on the contact page. Next, we have the questionnaire. The cells on the questionnaire field, some are drop down and others allow for data entry. For example, the number of regular voting members on the governing body and the alternate number of voting members allow for a number to be entered, while the rest of the fields on the page are drop downs for yes or no. Depending on your answer, if the answer is yes, for example, in question number 3, we ask that you use the questionnaire detail to provide more information regarding that yes answer. 2 pages of questionnaire detail have been provided this year. This is so that fire districts can enter information here to further explain an answer, as opposed to attaching supplemental information in the system. So for number 3, you could enter here and enter a response regarding your answer. The rest of the page, of course, the questions have not changed from prior years. The next page of the questionnaire asks about the vehicle list, and we'll go over that. Other questions that are yes, no in the drop-down, and then the LOSAP questions, which allow for the specific year, number of vested members, whether it is a fixed or auto increase amount each year, total budgeted LOSAP, and whether the plan contractor submits an annual financial statement to the Director of the Division of Local Government Services. We reviewed again the questionnaire detail pages, where further explanation can be provided. We also have the vehicle lists. So as opposed to prior years where lists of vehicles were attached, we're asking and requiring that they be entered right in the document itself, and we have provided space for each fire district to do so. We have 2 pages of vehicle lists, which allow for the entry of roughly 80 separate vehicles. Fire districts will enter the year, make, model, assigned staff, and their staff position, such as chief, lieutenant, etc. This page does allow for copying and pasting, but as I reminded earlier in the webinar, that paste values must be used to maintain the structural integrity of the document when pasting information from other workbooks. And again, we allow for 2 pages of the vehicle list. Next is the commissioner schedule. It's a 2-page section. The first page providing explanation of what should be entered on the commissioner list. This is relatively unchanged for prior years, with the exception that the questions regarding employment by other public entities have been removed. And we'll show here on the schedule, it is only compensation from the fire district that needs to be listed here. You'll notice that the commissioners listed here are different from the commissioners earlier in the document. That is because the commissioners, for the most recent W-2 form, the most recent year reportable and completed, the commissioners could be different than the commissioners that you currently have while completing your fire district budget. That's why we allow for this page to be data entry, and the information is not linked from earlier in the document. Next is the health benefits page. This page is completely unchanged from prior years, and we remind fire districts that for the employee cost sharing contribution, it must be entered as a negative amount in order for it to be subtracted from the subtotal and grand totals to give you an accurate healthcare cost appropriation from the fire district. And of course, we have the 2 questions at the bottom of the screen, drop-down menu, yes or no answer, as to whether or not medical coverage and or prescription drug coverage are provided by the state health benefits program. The next section is for accumulated absences. You'll see here that the names of the individuals eligible for benefit are entered, the gross days of accumulated absences are entered, the dollar value of that liability is entered, and the legal basis for benefit is marked with an X in the checkbox. We have provided this year multiple pages, 8 in fact, for the accumulated absences to be listed. Therefore, we require that they are entered in the document because sufficient space is available, and that this list may not be attached in FAST as a separate document. Each of the accumulated absence pages will total at the bottom of the page, whereas the final tab, Total Accumulated Absences, will reflect the grand total for all the pages. Next, we're going to move on to our financial schedule. We have our cover page for the section. And the information sheet, which is unchanged from prior years, your name of the fire district, the county, and the year will automatically populate since that was entered previously in the document. The information regarding the amount to be raised, cap bank available, cap bank used, etc. is all still entered on this page within the yellow cells. The budget summary is completely data entry. No information is entered on this page, as all the information feeds from other parts of the document, notably the revenue and appropriation pages F2 and F3. On page F2, this is where the revenues are entered. Revenues are allowed to be entered anywhere where there are yellow cells. So you can see here, for example, under interest on investments and deposits, bank account number 1 was entered in the text, and the amounts entered in each of the yellow cells. Again, the dollar change and the percent change from one year to the next are automatically calculated. The revenues, again, total at the bottom, and other cells that are white are either linking from another page or totaling the section above it. We do provide pages for revenue detail, which I'll get into a little more when we go over the appropriation, as we have appropriation detail pages as well. So we're on the appropriations screen, again, very similar to the revenue page. There's a couple more schedules for the appropriation, so there's a few more things that are linked, and anything that isn't linked allows for, of course, data entry. Again, those detail pages. So what we did as opposed to prior years is, instead of users attaching their detail, their breakdown of revenue or appropriation sections, we're requiring them to be listed in the document directly, and we've allowed the space to do so. We have 2 detail pages for revenues and 3 for the appropriations. So how does that play out in practice? For example, we have under the administration section, office expense and insurance as a single line item. It's $51,000 in the proposed budget for 2021 and $43,821 in the 2020 adopted budget. When we go to our detail page, we can set it up as follows. First, in all caps, list the name of the section first above all of the items. In this case, it's administration. Let's say that $51,000 under administration, where we had office expense and insurance, is really 4 separate items listed here: insurance, postage, stationery, and miscellaneous office supplies. We can then enter the individual amount for each of those items: $40,000 for insurance, $5,000 apiece for postage and stationery, and $1,000 for miscellaneous office supplies. We can then, in this cell, enter equals sum and add up each of these items to give us that $51,000 total, with totals entered, of course, on that same line, reflecting that it's the total for this administration section. The 2020 column is very similar to the 2021 column, giving us the $43,821 that you see on the appropriations page. Now, I do want to point out that the detail and the appropriations page itself are not linked in any way. If I was to remove this $51,000 here, the appropriation detail does not change. Whereas if I kept this $51,000 here and removed an account from the appropriation detail, with this total now becoming $50,000, the appropriations page does not change. The detail is simply a list or breakdown of the items that you have listed on your appropriations page, and it works the same way for the revenue pages as well. Next, we have our salary and benefit schedule, where administrative positions, operation and maintenance positions, and salary offset by revenue positions are all listed. The number of staff are listed, the average annual wages are listed, and those wages are multiplied by the number of staff to give you the proposed budget salary and wages. Now, as opposed to prior years, the document will no longer round amounts, and this is for the whole document: the accumulated absences, the health benefits, the appropriations, the salary and benefit schedules, the entire workbook no longer rounds amounts. That means exact change amounts need to be entered in order for the budget at the end, the total appropriation and total revenue amounts to not only balance but be accurate and according with the budget that was developed. And this also affects the amount to be raised by taxation now, as there are cases where that will now display a change amount as opposed to a rounded amount. This was done to ensure the accuracy of the amounts reflected and the final budget numbers. In addition to the salary amounts on the salary and benefits schedule, of course, the PERS, PFRS, employee group health insurance, and fringe benefit amounts are all entered, and they total in column I. None of the information in the yellow cells will populate from anywhere else in the document. The yellow cells on this page are completely data entry. Similar to the revenues and appropriations, the salary and benefits schedule also provides a detail page. If, for example, you get to position number 14 under operations and maintenance, but you still have 3 individuals left to list, you will use position 14, this final line, to list the total or the cumulative amounts for those 3 positions remaining. And then on the salary and benefit detail, list those 3 positions individually with their specific counts for number of staff, annual wages, their contributions, their health insurance, and fringe benefits. Again, similar to the appropriations and revenue schedules, anything entered on this page is simply for the breakdown and will not actually link back to the salary and benefit schedule itself. Next is the capital improvements page. This page is unchanged from prior years, where the projects are listed, asset type, whether the general election was in February or November, the date of voter approval, the affirmative vote percentage, and the 2021 and 2020 budget amounts. Reserve for future capital outlay is entered here, as are whether those capital appropriations are offset with restricted fund balance, unrestricted fund balance, or grants. If you have beyond the 7 improvements allowed on this page, you are required to use the capital budget detail to list each of the remaining projects separately. Again, the 7th capital improvement line can be used for cumulative amounts. Let's say you have 5 more projects. Capital improvement number 7 will be used for the total of those 5 projects, and then each of the 5 projects will be listed separately on the detail page. The remaining tabs of the document are unchanged from prior years. The principal for debt service, unchanged from prior years, where the name is entered, date of voter approval, the percentage, and date of local finance board approval, with the principal payment amounts for each year and the total calculating at the end. Similarly, you have the interest schedule, which brings over the name of the item and requires data entry for the interest amounts for each year, again with your total interest payment totaling at the end in column N. Both pages allow for the entry of capital appropriations offset with restricted or unrestricted fund balance as well as grant amounts. The fund balance page remains unchanged from prior years and will feed to the revenue and budget summary pages earlier in the financial schedules. Referendums are required to be entered on page F9. Page F10 for the levy cap summary is completely data entry. This page feeds information from other pages throughout the document, notably the cap exclusions and the appropriation pages. Page F11 is for the listing of shared service agreements. The type of shared service is listed, the name of entity providing the service is listed, and each of the costs associated with that shared service are listed on this page. And finally, we have the cap exclusion page where the levy cap is calculated. There are some data entry amounts such as the adopted PFRS and PERS contributions. as well as the health insurance exclusion at the bottom. The health insurance exclusion amount for the current year for the fire districts is 2.8%, and that has been updated on the most up-to-date version of the template available in the FAST portal. So finally, we're done the document, and now we want to print out the document. I want to point out that the instructions and key inputs pages are not required for printing of the official document. The real first page of the document is the cover sheet. So to print the fire district budget workbook, the first thing you're going to do is select the first tab, the cover sheet tab. You're going to hold the Control or CTRL button on your keyboard and click the right-facing arrow in the bottom left corner of the Excel screen. This will take you to the end of the document. You're going to release the Control button, hold the Shift button, and click the final tab. This has now highlighted the entire part of the document that you need for printing your official fire district budget, for providing to the public, for posting on your website as a PDF document, etc. You'll go up to File and Print to print out the workbook. Again, the instructions and key inputs tabs in the beginning of the document are not required upon printing. Next, we're going to save our document. Again, using the MuniCode _intro budget _2021 and save that here. When we're back in the FAST portal, we're now going to navigate to the introduced budget record. And you automatically land on an upload page that provides instructions regarding uploading of documents. Of course, it reviews the proper naming convention of the document and notes that all budget documents and supplementary documents, such as those contracts or proof of sale of assets that we mentioned earlier, are uploaded here. You'll click the Choose Files button, go to your files and select the document that you wish to upload, select Open, and then click Save on the page to upload the document. When you see the document appear here, where it says the timing that it was uploaded and the blue text, the document has been uploaded successfully. Next, we'll go to the Submit for Review tab. We see that our introduction public hearing date, or the date that the budget was approved and introduced, is entered. We check off what has been included as attachments, such as the introduced budget, of course, is required, the CNC3, special meeting documentation, contract agreements, and special items of revenue documentation. Once we've checked off all that are applicable, we click the Submit button, and the document has been submitted to the division. You will also, the individual that submitted, receive a confirmation email that is automatically generated by the system as long as the proper email address of that individual is on file in FAST. So we've uploaded our introduced budget, this document here. Upon adoption of the document, a couple things will happen. So what you can do in your files is save this document as a copy, calling it the same MuniCode _adopt budget _2021. Now we have our adopted budget, which has all the information that we already entered from our introduced budget. Should nothing change from introduction to adoption, the only thing that is required to be completed upon adoption are the adoption certification and the adoption resolution that we reviewed previously. Once those are submitted and the document has the proper naming convention, we can then navigate to our adopted budget in FAST. And on the Upload tab here, we select our adopted budget and click Save. If there are any resolutions to amend the budget between introduction and adoption, those resolutions will also be uploaded here, and we can upload other documents as necessary. Similar to the introduced budget, we will then navigate to a Submit for Review tab, where we enter our adoption date, which is a required field. We check off that we've included our adopted budget, as well as any amendments or ratified contract agreements, and we hit the Submit button. Similar to the submission of the introduced budget, a confirmation email is generated to the individual that submitted upon them successfully submitting, and as long as their accurate email address is on file. Again, any resolutions to amend the budget passed before adoption, so between introduction and adoption, must be uploaded to this portal, the adopted portal. Finally, you see here that we have an election results tab for the adopted budget. This is going to be open after the February elections have taken place and will allow for fire districts to record their February election results and submit them to the division. More instruction will be available on doing this as we get closer to that February election date, and it will be open shortly after the election date. Further, levy certification by the Director of DLGS to the municipal assessor upon successful passage of the adopted fire district budget will take place. The status of your adopted fire district budget in FAST will be updated to reflect that the levy certification was completed. Finally, if you require any technical assistance with accessing FAST, navigating FAST, uploading documents, submitting documents, downloading the template, or working in the template, we ask that you contact the help desk that has been set up at the Department of Community Affairs for answering FAST technical questions. The email address is helpdesk@dca.nj.gov, and the phone number for the help desk is 609-292-8134. Your question will be directed to FAST support, who will assist you in resolving whatever question or concern that you might have. That is an overview of the implementation for the FAST system for fire district budgets for 2021, and thank you for attending this webinar today.